So guys, now the next concept is prepositions, right? So let's learn what are the rules and applications and how to use it in the PTE context. So what are prepositions, right? So prepositions, I mean, if you want definition, is a word. Preposition is a word which places before a noun or a pronoun which shows the relation to the word, other words in a sentence. Okay, don't go for the definition. We don't need to. Like functions, what is the functions? This is important. It talks about the time, place, direction, movement, cause or manner or instrument. And then generally the examples is in, on, at, by, right? So these are the most common examples. Like for example, if there is a table, right, and then there's a book here on the table, here this is the table. So what you will say, the book is on the table or in the table, the book is over the table or beside the table. So depending upon the context, we use these prepositions. So we will learn what are its implications. Okay, so go down, types of preposition. So the most important is the preposition of time, which we will be spending significant portion of time. Similarly, the position, place, preposition of place or position, preposition of media, it is also important. And then preposition of direction, movement. So this is also important, but this we can guess, right? Where, in, on, into, out, from, towards. So these all are we can guess. So preposition of manner or method or media, like by. So I'm teaching by, using this by. I'm cutting grass with sickle, right? So with. So depending upon the context, when you use by, with, so this is also which we are going to learn. So the important one is preposition of time, right? For example, the general confusion is like in 1995 or on 1995. Most of the people are getting confused here. Or in Monday or on Monday, right? So people are getting confused here. So let's learn what are its implications. Okay. So for example, to understand this in or on, so we can, there's a logic here. So let's consider, let's draw a line, a timeline here. For example, here to here, let's say, okay. So the time starts from here, like let's say this is the timeline, and consider this as a year. Okay, 1 year. Like for example, consider this as 2025. Okay. So now, so if you are referring 2025, consider 1 year. 1 year is considered as a long period, then use in. So if you say like 2025, the long period, you use in. Let's say in 1995, in 2025, in the decade. The decade is considered is also long period. So if you are referring the long period of time, consider it, put in front of that particular one, like in 1995, in 2025, in decade, in century, in 15th century, in 19th century, like that, right? So this is like if we are referring year, or year is considered as a long period, put in, right? So like for example, year, and then seasons, right? So like for example, seasons, in rainy season, in monsoon, right, in fall. So all these considered are also considered as long period of time. Like for example, generally one season is considered of 3 months, right? So generally rainy season, it will consider 3 months, and summer season around 3 months, right? So this is what it is. So if you are considering the long timeline, put it. Okay. And then so this year is divided into 12 months, right? So month. So if you consider month is also considered as a long period, so put in, like for example, in January, in February, in December, right? So month is also considered as long period. And then after month there will be 4 weeks, right? So weeks is also considered as long, like in 3rd week, in 5th week, something like that. Okay, so in is considered like the weeks are also considered as the long period. So now after month or weeks, then there comes the day, right? So there will be 7 days in a week. So for the day you put on. So this is considered as shorter period, considered to long, considered to month or year. Day is considered as shorter period, right? So on Monday, on Tuesday, on Christmas Day, on New Year, on New Year Eve. So if you are referring to the specific day, put on. And then if you are referring to the specific point of the day or the specific time of the day, then put at, right? So at is the point, the specific point. Like for example, let's say at 5 a.m., at 12 noon, right? At 5:15, for example, PM. So consider this as at. Like for example, let me draw the line now. So let me draw the timeline, so it would be very easy for you guys to remember. Like for example, if you consider this as a long period here, consider this as a year, so this is year, then in. Okay, so this long period is year. Okay, and then so this year is divided into month. Month is considered also the long period in month. Okay, and then day is considered as the shorter period compared to month. On day. And then if you are referring to the specific point of time in the day, let's say 5 a.m., then 5 a.m. at 5 a.m. Long in, long year or decade in, long month in, and seasons in, and then particular day on. And if you are talking to the particular point of the day at, like for example, if you divide the day also, so what generally the day is considered as morning, right? Afternoon, and then night, right? So now morning is considered also as a long period if you consider one particular day. Generally the morning start from, let's say, what time? 6 a.m., right? 6 a.m. in the morning to 12 noon, right? So this is considered as the long period even. So in morning, okay. And then day is also considered as a long period, like for example 12 noon to 6 p.m., for example, let's say, or 7 p.m. Then this is also considered as afternoon, right? Day. So in afternoon. But night, maybe let's say after night. In evening is also considered as long period in the evening, right? In, like for example, after 8 p.m. you consider it as at night. So night is at. So why night is at, I don't know. This is the rule. So let me sum up now. Let us sum up so that it will be easy for you guys to understand, so that you will not forget. So let me rub this. So to sum up, right? To sum up, long period in, year, decade. Long period, month in, day, short period on, particular point of the day at. And then if you consider one day, within day there will be morning, there will be afternoon, there will be evening, and then there will be night. So morning, afternoon, or evening in, night at. So if you remember this, you will never make mistakes. Okay, so let's move to other so let's move to other concept. So at for the exact time, right? So that's what we learned. And then on for the specific day or days, Monday 25th of July. In for the month, year, centuries, long period, or even the seasons, right? And then since, from a specific point time till now, right? So like I'm living in Australia since 2010, right? Since 2015. So people will say like since or from. If there is a movement, only you use from. If not, if you are not there, if there is not a movement, and if you are referring to a specific point of time, then put since. Okay, for a duration, like for 3 hours, for 2 weeks, for a period, for a year, something like that, right? If you are referring to the duration. So generally the confusing part is in, on, and at. So I think you guys are clear here. So now preposition of place. Right. So if you are referring to the specific point of time, specific point of place, then put at, like at the door, at the bus stop, at the playground, right? So even now, when you are when you are there in the playground, if you say in, then you are inside here. If consider this as a playground, inside here. But if so, at could, you can stand here also, you can say at. If you stand here also, you can say at. Generally, if you are near inside already there, then you say I'm in the playground. If not, then if you are near to there, somewhere there, not inside the playground, and you will say at. Generally, so at the bus stop, at the school, at the playground. So those will all fall as at. Okay. On for a surface, right? So for example, if that is a surface and if it is on the top, then you say on, right? In, it is already in the enclosed place. For example, it is the box here. It is the box here. So let me draw the box. So inside the box, there is a ball. Then you can say the ball is in the box. In the box, right? That's already inside in the closed room. And then under, below something, right? So if so, this is the box, and there is a book here, for example. Then the book is under the table or under the box, right? Behind. So if the book is here, then the book is behind the box. So this is the box, and it is behind, right? So preposition of media, platforms, and public transportation. This is the most important one, right? For example, on is used on the surface, screens, or platform. Let's say, for example, I saw your photo on Facebook or in Facebook. It is on Facebook. So for the media or the platforms, you always put on. Like for example, on TV, on radio, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Tinder, right? Something like that, right? So all these, if you are using the media platforms, then use on, okay? Screens or stuffs like that on. So this is important, guys, okay? The only exception is that if you are referring to something about the newspaper, then I saw your photo in the newspaper. Why? Only the exception is newspaper. Why newspaper? Newspaper is considered or treated like a container. Container, like this is the container, right? Container. So in newspaper you will have the news, you will have advertisement, you will have photos, you will have pictures, you will have opinions. A lot of things will be there in one newspaper, right? So newspaper is considered as container. That's why only the only exception is here in newspaper. Otherwise, if you are referring to the platform, media, or services, then all put on. Okay, so this is the only exception. And then preposition of media, public transportations, right? So like the general confusion is on bus or in bus, like on plane, aeroplane, or in an aeroplane, right? So there's simple concept here. If you are referring to that particular public transportations, and that in that particular public transportations, if you consider, you can stand, pay attention to this picture, you can stand and walk here and there, then put on. If not, then in. Like for example, if you are referring to a bus, right? A bus. So inside bus, you can go and stand on the bus, and then you can walk, right? From here to there, right? That's why on bus. If you are referring to the train, so in the train, right? Sorry, on the train, you can go, walk, and then stand and walk here and there, right? That's why on train. Similarly, ship. Similarly, the cruise. Similarly, the aeroplane. All will come at in. Like for example, but if you are referring to taxi, inside taxi, can you stand and walk? No, right? So that's why in taxi. In the car, in car, like for example, this is car, right? So this is the car, and then this is car, right? So now you cannot stand and walk, no? Stand cannot, right? Walk cannot, right? That's why in. And boat, like there's a small boat, right? So this is the small boat. If you can you stand and walk? Can stand but cannot walk, right? So that's why in the boat, right? So like motorbike, if you consider, you can ask me why you on the motorbike, because you are on the surface of the motorbike, right? You are riding on the surface, so that's why on the motorbike. So just summing up for you guys, what is, you say on for the large transportations which you will be able to stand, big enough to stand and walk. If not, then we say in for the small locomotives, in the car, in the taxi. So this is important one. Okay, and then now let's move on. Preposition of direction. So like moving towards a place, like this is the school, like this is the school, and then you are moving, going towards. So that's why you put to, right? You put to. And then into, moving inside, walk into the room. Like for example, this is the room, and then there's a movement. So you are walking and going inside this closed room, then that should be into. But if you are already in the room, already there in the room, you say I'm in the room. You are not say I'm into the room. No, I'm in the room. So if there is a movement, put into or onto. If there is no movement, then put in or on. Like for example, and then let's see other examples also, right? And then onto, movement on the surface, to a surface, right? So jump onto the bed. So if you are there lying in the bed, you say I'm lying on the bed, but there's a bed and you are jumping, there's a movement, so that's why onto the bed. I think it's clear now. Out of, movement from or inside, out of, right? He ran out of the, I think this is easy. From, starting point of the motion, right? She came from Paris. You cannot say she came since Paris. No, that's why movement should be there. If there's a movement, put from. If there's no movement, you can put since, right? Preposition of manner and method. By, method of transportation or communication, by car, by phone. I'm calling by phone, right? So I think this is easy. With use of instrument tools, cut a knife, cut with a knife, right? Lie. So runs like a cheetah, because resemblance or you are comparing, in that context you put lie. So as, functions or role, work as a teacher, right? So these are the rules. These are the rules, guys. Now just giving you some of the questions. We will meet him. Start. The question is, we will meet in, on, at Monday. So Monday, so this is day, consider a shorter period, so on Monday, right? He was born 1995, year, long period, in 1995. The keys are dash, table. So this is the table, and then we consider the keys is here. So keys are on the table, right? And then she left the office dash 6 p.m. We are talking about a specific point of time. That's why at 6 p.m. right? And then I saw it dash in Facebook or on Facebook? On Facebook, because media platforms will put on. Similarly, there are other examples that you can do on your own. Going to learn is determiners and conjunctions, adverbs and subordinating conjunctions. Okay, so don't go by this name. Okay, so don't go by this name. We don't need to like look after the topics. So let's go. Specific and general determiners, right? So what are determiners? Determiners are the word which come at the beginning of a noun phrase. They tells us whether a noun phrase is specific or general. Remember our articles, right? A, an, and the. So there are three types of article. A and an is indefinite article. The is definite article. Similarly, here the determiners, the specific determiners is the, and then possessive is my, your, like possessive, my, your, his, her, something like that, right? Demonstrative is this, that, these, those. And then the general determiners is a or an. The important thing here that you guys need to know is, if you are using the definite article the, then that is a specific determiner. And if you are not using the specific determiners the, then that is other is the general determiners. Now we will learn what are the implications. So most important would be on the interrogative determiners, where to use which and what. Expect at least one or two question in the real exam. Like for example, the question will come like this: I like the city dash which or what is very beautiful. Very beautiful. Now you will say which or what, depending upon the context, right? Depending upon the rule you need to use. So that's why we are learning it, which or what. Okay. So the interrogative determiner, which or what which is a specific determiner, meaning you already know that which you are talking to. Like for example, here are three books. Which book do you think is the most interesting? See, which comes. You will not say what book. So now you are comparing the interesting book among these three books only. You are not comparing with others. They have 4 boys. Which boy is the oldest? So among those 4 boys, you are referring to which one is the oldest one, right? I can't remember which house Janet lives in, because Janet lives in, this is specific. We already know. You cannot say what house, right? Which house. That is the correct way, because this is the specific one, because you already know the context and you need to choose in between or from the given options. Now, what is a general determiners? What food do you like? We don't know. There are no options, right? It is very general. We are not given with any options to choose. Because of the reason, you use what. I don't know what job she does. She could do engineering, she could do medical, she could do construction, she could do accounting, whatever it is, right? So we don't know. But I don't know which job she does. Either accounting, if you have given with the accounting, or engineering, then you should choose. I don't know which job she does, either accounting or engineering, because you are comparing in between accounting or engineering. But in this context, there is no options given. That's why what. Let's go and learn some of the assessment questions, right? Now we see which dash color do you prefer for the walls, blue or green? So now you need to choose between blue or green. That's why which. Next example could be, dash subjects are you taking in this semester? Which or what? Which semester we are talking to? Which subject? We don't know. That's why what. What is the correct option? That dress you are going to wear to the party, the red one or the black one? Then the correct option is which, because you need to compare between the red or the black. You need to choose, sorry, not compare, choose. Dash movies do you like watching? Comedy or drama? So the tricky part is here it should be what? Why? Because comedy or drama is not specific. So here comedy, there could be lot of movie genre, right? Comedy and drama is the genre of the movies. There could be comedy, drama, fiction, arts, crime, whatever it is. But that's why this is what, because this is not specific. But if you are giving the option, dash movies do you like watching? Avatar or Titanic, for example, then it should be which. Why? Because you have the specific options here, Avatar or Titanic. But if you are given with the comedy or the genre, movie genre, which is not specific, that's why that is what. I hope you guys understand this one, right? It was the only tricky part, but apart from that, rest all are good. Okay. And then going down, this book is yours. This book is yours on the table. Which or what? Which book? Why? Because you are comparing with you are like choosing between the books that is on the table already. For example, on the table there are 3 books, and then out of these 3 books you will say which book is yours, right? That kind of music do you listen to? That kind of music do you listen to when you study? Which or what? What? Because we don't know. We are not given with the options to choose the music, right? That's your what. I hope it is clear. Now let's go on the rules of using conjunctive adverbs and subordinating conjunctions. You don't need to go for the definitions again, right? So conjunctive adverbs are the words like however, moreover, nonetheless, nevertheless, yet, something like that. And then subordinating conjunctions are the words like since, why, even though. Those are the words which, depending upon the context, that you need to use. Like for example, so like the conjunctive adverbs, it will use to show the contrast or additions, cause or effect. Generally this will come with the independent clause, right? So what is independent clause? Independent clause is independent sentences which is already the complete sentence, right? And then subordinating conjunctions are the words that use like since, while, even though. Then this comes with the dependent clause, meaning dependent clause is not a complete sentence within itself. Like for example, since it was raining, since it was raining, is this a complete sentence? No, right? So subordinating conjunctions will come with the incomplete or dependent clause, but conjunctive adverbs like moreover, however, nevertheless, nonetheless, it comes with the independent clause, which is already the complete. You don't need to go for the definitions. Okay, now let's go and see what are the implications. So if you are showing the contrast or concessions, you use the words like nevertheless, nonetheless, even though, however, right? So nevertheless and nonetheless or even though is basically the same thing, exactly same thing, 100% same thing. Okay, so like in the options, if you are showing there is a contrast between 2 ideas, if there is one idea and then there's one idea, and then you need to show the contrast or concession of that particular idea, and then start with the sentence. Then in that context you use nevertheless, nonetheless, or even though, right? So basically all these are the same thing. If there is a 4th option except nevertheless, nonetheless, and even though, then the 4th option would be the correct one. Okay, so it shows the contrast or concession. Like the example would be, it was raining, nevertheless we went for a walk. It was raining, nonetheless we went for a walk. It was raining, even though we went for a walk. It shows the contrast. Generally, if it was raining, then the expectation is you should stay inside home, right? You should not go out. But if you are showing the contrast of this previous meaning, if you are showing the contrasting outcomes, then you use nevertheless, contrast or concession, right? And then the task was difficult, nevertheless she completed it on time. The task was difficult, even though she completed it on time. Basically the same thing. You are showing the contrast or concession. Okay. And then however is also same. You need to use when you are showing the contrast or concession, but generally however it can come from the start of the sentences, beginning of the sentences, it can come in between of the sentences, and then it can come at the end of the sentences also. Like for example, I wanted to go hiking, however it start raining. This is also correct sentence. She is very talented, she is however quite shy. See, the however come in between, right? So it is also the correct complete or the correct sentence. She passed the test, however. This is also the correct sentence or the complete sentence, grammatically correct sentence. So however can come starting of the sentence, in middle of the sentence, and at the end of the sentence. So this is the only difference. Generally, nevertheless, nonetheless, even though, this will only come at the start of the sentence or the beginning of the sentence. So that is the only difference. Apart from that, all these will show the contrast or concession of the previous ideas. So when solving the blanks, if the blanks has however, moreover, nonetheless, even though, in that context, at least you need to read both sentences. Like for example, you need to read one sentence and then there's a blank here and then there's another sentence. In the blank you have however, even though, nonetheless, but, something like that, right? So in that context, you need to read this full sentence and then this full sentence. If there is a contrast or concession, you use this. If there is like the additional information, then there should be something, the positive word here, not however, not more, not nevertheless, not nonetheless, maybe in addition, or maybe moreover, or maybe, for example, namely, similarly, whatever it is, right? These all, but these will show the positive sign. So nevertheless, nonetheless, even though, however, these all are contrast. And then if you are giving the examples, if you are showing something positive correlation, then in that context you use similarly, you use in addition. If you are making the point, if you are giving the examples, for examples, or for instance, or namely, all these will come supporting the previous idea. The gist is, so if you are solving if there is a blank, and if there are words like however, moreover, in addition, similarly, for example, so you need to read both of the lines before that blank and after the blank, so that you will get the idea what this sentence is trying to say, and then select the correct options. That is the key. Okay, so now let's move other concept, but and yet. So most of the people will also confuse with but and yet. So what is the but? But shows the contrast or the complete opposite. She is very talented, but she lacks confidence. So like generally the expectation is, if the talented person should also possess the confidence, right? But she is very talented, but she has confidence, she lacks confidence. I want to go to work, but I'm very tired. See, shows the complete contrast, right? But yet will use if the result is surprising. Like for example, I don't study well, yet I passed PTE with 79 plus. Here you are not using but, because here the result is surprising. Generally, if you don't study well, then you are not expected to pass PTE with 79 plus, right? But even though you don't study well, but you passed PTE with 79 plus, then in that context you use yet, because the result is surprising. Generally, another example would be, we don't play well, yet we win the match. See, general expectation is, if you don't play well, then you are not going to win the match, right? But despite not playing well, you win the match. Then in that context, when you want to write by using, then put yet, not but. So but, complete contrast. The only thing that you guys need to understand is but is the complete contrast, yet is the surprising result. Like for example, but complete contrast, yet surprising result. Okay, so in that context, you use yet, but and yet. Now, contrast or concession, despite and in spite of. So this is also the most important concept, right? Despite and in spite of, you will get. So despite and in spite of is basically the same thing. So despite will only despite, in spite will come with of. So in the options, in the blanks, if you have despite and if you have despite of, then despite of is gone already, 100% wrong. Despite will only come with despite, and in spite will come with of. The application is same. So when you use despite or in spite of, after despite and in spite of, either noun phrase or gerund will follow. For example, despite raining, we went to a walk. Despite raining, see, this ing form of verb is acting as a gerund. You cannot write despite it is rained. No, this ed form of verb cannot come. So despite will follow either noun or noun phrase or gerund. Despite raining, we went to a walk. Despite I eat food, gone case. Despite eating, I am weak. Eating is ing form of verb, which is called as gerund. Despite of his injury. See, despite of his injury is noun phrase. Sorry, in spite of his injury, same thing. But if you want to write, so if you don't want to use noun phrase, if you want to use gerund, that in spite of being injured, he played the match. See, of being injured. So this is ing form of verb. Ing came after in spite of or despite of, whatever it is. So remember concept. Despite will only despite, and in spite should come with of. Both of them are same. This should follow either despite, after despite and in spite of, it should follow either noun or noun phrase or gerund. So after despite and in spite of, only this possibility will only come. If there is a verb or ed form of verb, then despite, and you cannot use despite or in spite of. That is the only thing, guys. Okay, so let's quickly go on the examples. So like, what is that? So I'm trying to show what is gerund, right? So what is gerund? Gerund is ing form of verb acting as a noun. So like, for example, they are swimming in the ocean. This is one sentence. And then, despite swimming nicely, he drowned in the pond. That is also another sentence. Now I'm giving you another sentence. Swimming is a fun activity. Okay, so now in these three sentences, it is also swimming, it is also swimming, it is also swimming. But here, swimming is acting as a verb because they are swimming. It is showing the action that the people are doing, right? Despite swimming, here also swimming is coming as ing form of verb, acting as a gerund here. Okay, acting as a gerund here. Now here in this sentence, swimming is a fun activity. Now swimming is acting as a noun here. It is denoting the noun here. Is a form of activity, right? So like swimming, so like swimming is a fun activity, right? Fun activity. So is verb here. So swimming is acting as a noun. So gerund is nothing but ing form of verb acting as a noun. Here also this is gerund. So this is not verb. This is gerund. This is acting as a noun. So the key takeaway here is gerund is nothing but ing form of verb who is acting as a noun. And then this is one application. Another application is gerund will connect the sentences. Like for example, fanboys will also connect the sentences, right? Now gerund will also connect the sentences. For example, a classic example would be I am running in a park. In the park, for example. In the park. Okay, this is one sentence. Now another, I am thinking of my son. Okay, so now these are two sentences. Now you want to connect the sentences. If you want to connect the sentences, you either you use fanboys, right? Fanboys. So how you connect? I am running in the park and I am thinking of my son. If you connect, use fanboys, and then you can say I am running in the park and I am thinking about my son. Now, if you don't want to use gerund, if you don't want to use fanboys, but if you still want to connect the sentences, then use gerund. So now, if you want to connect these two sentences using gerund, then what the sentence would look like? Look here, I am running in the park thinking, thinking of my son. See, this thinking is ing form of verb. It connects two sentences to make one full sentence. So now the question is that if you want to connect those two sentences, but if you don't want to use fanboys, use gerund. So this, by using this concept, expect at least one or two blanks when solving the PTE blanks. So gerund, there are two applications. Gerund will act as noun, ing form of verb acting as a noun, that is one. And the another application is gerund will connect two sentences. If you don't want to use fanboys, then you can use gerund to connect two sentences. That's it. Let's learn how to use cause and effect, right? So if you have to write cause and effect, how you write? Since is used to show a reason or a cause. It is followed by a clause, right? It is also used to denote the time. Remember our example in preposition, we use since, right? If you are denoting some specific point of time. But here, since can also use for cause and effect. Like since it was raining, we stayed indoor. She is living here since 29th, right? Since it was raining, see. So it is cause and effect. If there is a cause, the cause was raining, the effect was we stayed indoor, right? So while if you are comparing happening two actions at the same time, and if you are comparing, you use while it used to show the two actions that are happening at the same time, right? So like she read a book while she cooked dinner. I am learning PT while I am listening music, right? I am traveling while I am learning while I am reading a novel. So if you are denoting, if you are trying to show two actions happening at the same time, you use while. So now I'll give you 2 minutes for you to solve this. Warning from pediatricians and other health professionals that coffee and other caffeinated beverages like sodas or sports drink can be harmful to youth. Side. Now you need either despite of, since or over. So what would be the correct option here, guys? Dash years of warning. See, ing form of verb, right? Gerund is there. Now you should. So now you should say either despite or in spite of. Now let's go for the option despite and despite of. It's gone. Cannot use. Since is used. So cause and effect, or if you are denoting the specific point of time, cannot, right? Since cannot come over, cannot come, because that is not fitting in the context. So the only option that you left is despite and despite of. Despite of, you cannot, of will not come with despite, right? So the only option is despite. So despite years of warning, see, gerund ing form of verb is there, right? So that's why despite running blah 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 blah, right? So little ones toddler to think those advantages, because children are usually smaller in body size. It takes less caffeine to dash their functioning. So just remember, whether the positive thing will come, positive question sentence will come, word will come, or negative word will come. Think. Something, right? Negative thing will come. Negative word will come. After 2, V1 will come. So if you are using for the grammar concept, after 2, V1 will come. Coexist, it is verb, V1, yes, it will stay. Replicate, it is V1, yes, it will stay. Impair, V1, it will stay. Revert, V1, it will stay. If you go with this 2 plus V1 concept, you are not going to solve. Now let's go for the positive negative concept. Here you need something, because if you are using or drinking this caffeinated beverage, it will have some sort of negative impact on your health, right? So what impact? We need to find out the negative word. Coexist, it is positive word, it will go. Replicate, it is, you can say neutral, okay? It will stay, okay? Replicate, it's kind of a neutral word, or at least positive word, you can say, it will stay. Impair, it is positive or negative? Negative. You need something negative, right? It will stay, right? Replicate, it is neutral, okay? That's why I'm putting here, it will stay. Revert is also kind of, you are coming back, right? You are answering something, it will positive, it will go. So now you need to check between replicate and impair. Now you need to like decide between replicate and impair. Now come back and see, because children are usually smaller in body size, it takes less caffeine to dash their functioning. Impair their functioning, not replicate. Replicate is you are making 2, right? Impair is something giving harm. You are degrading the quality, or you are degrading the quality. So that is called the impair. So that's why impair. Okay, their functioning. And I hope it is clear now. And then let's go to the next option. So now, an significant amount for an adult could be dash for a small child. So now you need something positive or negative, could be dash for a small child. You need something positive or negative word here. You need something negative word, right? Because the amount that which considered to be significant for adults and insignificant for adults would be like a damaging for small child, right? So now you need something negative word. Now stubborn, is this negative word? Yes, it will stay. Overwhelming, it is negative word. Yes, it is stay. Groundbreaking, it is positive word, it will go. Best, it is positive word, it will go, right? So now you need to compare between the stubborn and overwhelming, right? Stubborn, is this stubborn for a child? No, right? Stubborn is something like, it's stubborn is not fitting in the context, right? You need something like which will have a significant impact or some sort of impact. Then overwhelming for a child, because it is a kind of a strong response or strong effect. What you call it, overwhelming is like kind of a strong effect, I would say, right? Could be overwhelming for a small child, cannot be stubborn, right? Too much caffeine can cause increased heart rate, blood pressure, contribute to acid reflux. A lot of effects are there. In very high doses, caffeine can be dangerous. Other problems, with kids drinking coffee is that it's of little nutritional value, and that's something that could be nutritionally complete, such as milk and water. Think. In very high doses, caffeine can be dangerous. Other problems with kids drinking coffee is that it's of little nutritional value. So now the coffee will have very nutritional value, and it's dash something that can be nutritionally complete, such as milk and water, right? So what you need, whether it is positive or negative word here, you need something positive word here. Now changing is a positive word, yes, it will stay. Damaging, it is negative word, it will go. Replacing, yes, it is kind of positive word, it will display. Diverting, it is also negative word, it will go. Now you need to change between two words, changing or replacing. Now see, you need to dash coffee with something. You need to coffee drink with something healthier, like milk or water, something healthier than what you are going to do. You will replace the coffee, right? You will not change the coffee. Changing, like changing from properties, one property, if you are changing the properties, then you would have you changing, right? But here it is not changing, you are replacing coffee with something. That's why the correct option is replacing, right? So now see, this is what you need to read the context and understand it. Although the grammar will work, but the key is you need to understand the context. Here what I was trying to show here is, see, despite will come, because if you are using the grammar concept, warning is there, right? Ing form of verb is there, or gerund form is there. So the correct option is despite, here 1, and then impair, it is 2, and then overwhelming, it is 3, and then replacing, it is 4. Just put in the comment section how much you got. If you are getting 4 by 4, then you are outstanding. You are ready for this 85 in writing.